Well, good afternoon and welcome to the principal's office. I am Principal Edward Gordon. I am so glad you have tuned in for this weekly broadcast where we'll be interviewing educational stakeholders who have made a significant impact for themselves, for others, and with others in education. In the book, The 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, written by Dr. John C. Maxwell, he talks about the law of modeling. The law of modeling states it's hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. A good mentor is a worthy example, available, has proven experience, possesses wisdom, provides friendship, provides support, and makes a difference in people's lives. We believe there are many outstanding leaders in this world, and weekly we want to highlight those leaders, leaders that will help us provide models of excellence for others. Today, I'm grateful to have another special guest who is making a significant impact in education, Ms. Martine Francois de Paz. Good afternoon, Ms. de Paz.
Good afternoon, Edward. How are you?
I am doing well. So glad you have decided to come on to the show and share your story with the audience.
And
So
you're
I
going
could start off, sorry, I'd like to start off with a brief introduction of our guest today. Ms. Martine Francois de Paz began her career in education as an elementary teacher. In the spring of 2001, she was accepted into the New York City Teaching Fellows Program. For 18 years, Ms. Paz worked for the New York City Department of Education, where she grew and developed her craft teaching across a variety of grades, first in the South Bronx at the Charles James Fox School and later in Bellerose, Queens at PSIS 266. During the latter part of her teaching career, she sought out many teacher leader opportunities, which led to her eventually deciding that she wanted to venture down the road of educational administration. As a teacher leader, she was a member of her school's instructional leadership team. She also launched two teacher collaboration programs within her school building that focused on professional development. Mr. Paz served as a cooperating teacher for a number of student teachers, as well as a mentor for new teachers within the school. In 2019, Mr. Pass was appointed as one of the assistant principals at the Longwood Middle School with the Longwood Central School District out in Long Island, New York, where she presently serves. She has been afforded the opportunity to support teachers and contribute to student success. Again, audience, help me welcome to the show Ms. Martine Francois de Paz.
Thank
So
you.
good afternoon again, Mr. Paz, and I just want to start off with a quote. Maya Angelou states, "We write for the same reason that we walk, talk, climb mountains, or swim the oceans, because we can. We have some impulse within us that makes us want to explain ourselves to other human beings." I ask you, Ms. Mark DePass, what is your story?
My story. Oh, goodness. Um, it seems like you captured it pretty well in the bio there in terms of the history of it. But my story basically it boils down to my grandmother was an educator. She was an educator in Haiti. She was a school teacher for over 25 years. And apparently that seems to run through my blood, where I didn't seek out to be a teacher initially, but somehow life has a way of leading you in the direction that you need to go to. So when I was probably about 27, I decided I wanted to go back to school, and the opportunity presented itself that I could look into teaching, to go that down that road. So I applied through the Teaching Fellows Program, which is an alternative certification program. It was a rigorous interview process, a selection and interview process, and I luckily, I guess it was meant to be, got accepted. And then from there, my career was off and running. What started my career in terms of 2001, September 2001, we all know what that signifies, 9/11. So 5 days into teaching, 9/11 occurs, and just, sent everybody for a tailspin, especially a brand new teacher. What I learned from that, ultimately, vulnerability, that, even as a leader, it's okay to show vulnerability because it shows those who are around you that you are human and that it's okay to have those moments of questioning and doubt, but that you can still persevere and go through. So in becoming an educator, the goal is to teach children that, yes, you're going to have obstacles that will come your way, things that you can't plan for, but how do you give them the tools to persevere so they can not just make it through, but succeed later on? So that's my goal when I became an educator. That is still my goal as an educator.
Very good. And I just it's very interesting in terms of your story starting teaching in 2001, and now let's just fast forward, just thinking about what we have been going through over the last year as a pandemic in our schools, and can you just share with the audience. I know that has been a different from when you started in 2001 to what you have gone through this year. Can you just share one of the lessons that you've learned just by going and being an educator during this pandemic?
The pandemic has taught me that you need to extend grace to yourself, grace to others. Also, no matter how well prepared you are for something, life is still going to toss something that you didn't see coming at you. And it's all about how you receive it, how you rise to the occasion, which we've all done in this country. We've all been able to do that. In this educational world, especially, we had to change overnight. How do we continue the learning process for children? And nothing came to a standstill. So people had to learn how to come together. So I think it taught me a great deal about the human spirit and how we can just continue to move on, regardless of what obstacles are put before us. And it has not been easy. I've watched my teachers who are not so comfortable with certain mediums, such as technology, become very well versed in it, balance a lot, juggle a lot, give up a lot, sacrifice. So it's across the boards. It's impacted the children, but it's impacted the adults. And just extend grace.
Very good. Extending grace, and also what you said of coming together. We have to support one another during this time period. And also, being an educator, being an administrator is not easy. But when you create networks and environments where you're working together and come together in the best interest of your students, that's where you're going to be successful and have the most benefits for who we're there to serve, which are the students. So thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you, what excites you every day?
uh, Besides the idea of getting some rest. What excites me, first and foremost, my children. I'm almost an empty nester. This September, I will be. And just watching how my children have grown and evolved. I have a full-fledged adult child who's on her own now, and my son is soon to start that journey of leaving the nest. And then I think about my students. I've had former students that I've reconnected with recently, one not too long ago, in fact, last month. Ironically enough, this particular student of mine, he turns out that he is one of the admissions counselors of the school my son got accepted to. But it was exciting to see no longer this 10-year-old boy that I had left, or who had left me when he moved on after fifth grade, but now to see him as an adult and doing well and being successful. And other former students that I've been able to get into contact with, that excites me. Present day, with my current kids in the building, and as an assistant principal, you tend to deal with the disciplinary issues. But in having those interactions, if they are frequent with particular children, you do start to form those bonds. But just knowing when they have a good day, or being able to help them have a good day, even if it's just offering a small bit of grace, letting them know, like, okay, you have a voice here, even though you feel that nobody's listening to you. I'm listening to you now. Share with me why you may have done something, why you chose to go down that road. I'm giving you the space to do that. That does excite me. The work is exhausting, I'm not going to lie. We all know this as educators, but just to see where the trust begins to form and develop, and you see where they want to seek you out and come to you, that excites me. Just the relationships. So relationships with present students, relationships with former students who found me, relationships even with colleagues, just letting them know, like, hey, how are you? I'm here for you. Not always where it's about, like the teaching and the academics, but the social emotional aspect of it too. So connection.
Very good. One thing that you mentioned is about, and it is exciting and it's rewarding when you're in education for several years and you see your students now becoming young adults and productive citizens and giving back to society, it is definitely rewarding. And that's something you never know the impact of your influence while you're in the classroom in front of them. But when you see them out there in the community and they come back and they say thank you for
Yes,
the lessons that you didn't even think that they were listening to, but
exactly.
they definitely were. That is truly rewarding. So thank you. So I want to ask you, what is the most recent book you have read, and how has that book impacted your life or your career right now?
Being a new administrator, this is only now my second year that I'm closing out. So the most recent book was The Assistant Principal 50 by Principal Kafele. And
Yes.
that book just has a lot of questions, guiding questions to lead you to think about why you're doing the work that you do and how you can best serve your school community, as well as looking towards your own future. Where do you want to go next, professionally speaking? So it's been a great tool in the sense of sometimes in this role that's still relatively new, I will question myself and I won't always have somebody readily available. But at least with the book, I can start asking myself those questions or take that moment to stop and reflect. Okay, why are you thinking this? Or why are you questioning it? Why are you doubting it? How could you have done this better? How can you next time put this in place so that there is more success? So it really gives you the tools for self-reflection as well as how to navigate this job.
Yes. So we talk about teachers and mentors. You never know about their impact. So Principal Kafele is also a mentor to me as well. When I started off my career over 15 years ago as a school principal, he was there for me to support me, and still accessible now in terms of a text or a phone call. And it's good that it was able to through his career continuously put out these principles and concepts that are helping assistant principals, current principals to be effective and also be successful in their work. So
Mhm.
I appreciate you mentioning that book written by Principal Kafele. As we think more about mentorship and also coachings, do you have a mentor or a coach in your life? And if so, what is one of the lessons that that mentor or coach has taught you that has impacted your career?
I would say I have unofficially several mentors. And that started even from teaching, where, somebody would just kind of take you under their wing, and next thing you know, they've become your mentor as well as your confidant. Officially speaking, I would say a former college professor of mine and from my leadership program, Dr. Kathy Weiss. She was not only a wonderful instructor, but she has now become a friend, and she sort of guides me through this as I'm navigating these uncharted territories, so to speak. She was a former teacher, a former assistant principal, former superintendent. So she's gone across all levels within education. But she helps you sometimes to see what you don't see within yourself, um, which is good. It's promising, and it leads you to sometimes just take that step back and think to yourself, okay, where I'm having these periods of doubt or negativity, depending on whatever the instance may be, she helps you to look at the other side of it. And whatever it is that she is able to see in an individual, having worked with so many across the years, I sort of tap into that and I lean into those bits of advice that she'll give me. And I'm free to reach out to her. I can call her whenever I need to and just have that conversation with her that I may feel like I need some guidance or just I need to vent. But it's good having her as my sounding board, if you will, my thought partner. But yeah, I would say that she would be my official mentor. I also have within my school building, there's supposed to be two assistant principals. We haven't officially hired the second one yet, but we have an acting assistant principal who's become not only a great colleague, but a great friend. And she too was a former principal of a middle school. So she, as a teacher and then went into administration through the ranks. So getting her perspective, and she gets to see me firsthand on the job, so she can give me that feedback that I so often crave of, like, okay, do you think I handled this well, or what do you think of my decision for this, like before I share it with others, this is where my thought is, what do you think? And she'll push me with questions, and she'll challenge me at times. And my principal too, she's amazing. I have to say, tremendous support from the both of them within the building. And then there's other former principals that I worked under who I use them as my model. And same with other colleagues who now are APs but have been in it a bit longer than I have. I can turn to them. So I have a wealth of resources in that respect.
Yes. Well, it's good that you are an administrator that has a wealth of resources, mentors that you can call who have various leadership experiences. That one word that you mentioned is about being accessible, that you can call, you can reach out, you can email, and they'll respond. And that's really key when for anyone that is looking and seeking out a mentor, you're going to make sure that the mentor that you choose has chosen to work with you is accessible. It's also to have be in a work environment where you have mentors within your building. Sometimes you just need that quick sounding board,
Yes.
someone with who's gone through the situation that you're going to have, or has had the conversation with another teacher, or a conversation with a parent that you're about to have, that's be able to share exactly how they handle it, their experiences. Also, times where, and this being very transparent, when things didn't go well.
Yes.
Okay, but who really cares about you and wants you to grow so that you don't have to get in the same situation that they went through. So it's definitely good to have a mentor and various mentors in your life on this career journey. So let's talk a little bit about professional development,
Okay.
and let's talk about uh, in your experiences, what would you say is effective professional development experiences for teachers, with understanding that you have teachers that have various skills and abilities, years of experience? How do you reach out and really meet the needs of the various levels of educators within your school building?
There's multiple ways of doing it in terms of thinking about what we're trying to promote within the building, be it a new initiative or what curriculum we're trying to move forward, looking at the data and seeing where we need to go next. That tends to be how we group the teachers together. There's also self-interest professional development. I think and it's new for me within the past few years that I took part in this as a teacher and as an aspiring leader at the time. With COVID, I didn't get the opportunity to do this professional development last year because everything was shut down. But I find ed camps to be quite helpful. I don't know if you're familiar with them,
Yes.
but
Mm-hmm.
they're amazing in the sense of you get to choose the direction where you want your PD to go, what interests you, what you feel you need more support in. Within the building, I know when I was in my previous school, before becoming an actual administrator, but as a teacher leader, I launched these two collaborative projects where the best PD I often felt was where you could tap into the strength of the building without having to bring outside people in. But you had so many wealth of resources who were just teaching within their classrooms, but we tend to be an isolated profession where we close our doors. So by offering teachers the opportunity and the flexibility of scheduling to post when they're offering a particular lesson and another teacher can go in and observe and then ask questions, giving them the freedom and flexibility. I also believe that you should have PLCs occurring within schools. Those professional learning communities, I think, are a wonderful tool to have. And that also taps into the different levels of support that the teachers may need, but it also keeps in mind the initiative of what you're trying to put forth in the building. But there's also the final idea of finding that thought partner, be it a teacher on the grade or a teacher who's just done really well in this, and teaming the two of them up together. Such as I had a teacher who did an amazing math lesson where it was pretty much student run. But to get to that point, she had to lay a lot of work in the foundation. And I had another teacher talking about she wanted to try to do something like that. And I suggested she go speak to that teacher and, just let the other teacher have a heads up, like, hey, Mrs. Such and such is coming to you. She wants to know more about this. Would you mind spending some time with her?
Yes. So there's two things that overall you share so much information about effective professional development, and one thing is about this, want to encourage all the school leaders and superintendents, definitely differentiate your professional development to meet your needs of your teachers, and that's really important. And that's one key point that you share by having sharing the different options and ways that you can provide professional development for your teachers in your school settings. The second key point that I heard was about creating that environment to for teachers that have great practices that are being performed within their classrooms, acknowledging them
Mhm.
for those great practices, but also setting up an opportunities for others to learn about those promising and best practices so that it could be multiplied and duplicated throughout your building. And that is really key. I believe that many of the questions uh, that we have within our school, the answers are in the building. It's
Correct.
a matter of creating those opportunities for our teachers to share, to talk, to be thought partners, and to come together in terms of solutions to be able to meet the needs of our students in our school environment. So again, thank you for sharing such wisdom around effective professional development. So let's talk a little bit more about. Uh, I was reading your bio. You have many opportunities and experiences as a cooperating teacher.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about uh, student teachers and cooperating teachers, and we're going to talk about it in twofold. The first is just some advice that you will share for student teachers, and then we'll go into some advice that you will share for cooperating teachers working with the student teachers.
For student teachers, the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to jump in. You're here, after all, to learn how to become that classroom teacher. And you have this person within the classroom, the cooperating teacher, as your model, but you don't want to just sit back. You want to be able to take part. I could share a story with you. One of my former student teachers, her first day, she arrived. We had just had a bad snowstorm like the day prior, so she was a little bit late coming in. Her supervisor brought her into the classroom, introduced her to me, and then we introduced her to the classroom. And usually I like to give my student teachers like a day or two just to sort of observe and just get a feel for the classroom environment, the community that we've established. And then, throughout the day, just point out certain things to them in terms of structures and routines that have been put into place. So this particular student teacher on this day, I had received a phone call. I was in the middle of a math lesson, and for me to stop, it was right at an important juncture, but I had to take the call. So she said, "I'll take over." And I was like, "Okay, fine. Let me see how you can do with this." So I'm on the phone and I'm handling whatever the issue was, and I'm watching her with the kids, and she just immediately jumped in, just as if diving into a body of water. And in that sink or swim moment, she swam. And she was willing to do that. She was nervous, she said, but you couldn't tell. And immediately I saw the rapport that she had with the kids. That was forged from day one. And to say that she has that, I call it a gift, where she was able to connect with the kids, and you could see where she was going to be that teacher. And that was just from the very first day. She likes to joke about it. We're friends now, years later, but she likes to joke that I threw her into the shark infested waters. And I'm thinking, you offered. Susan, you offered, I took you up on it. But don't be afraid to ask questions, jump in, take part in as many experiences, not just within the classroom, but within the school building as well. Because teaching is not just, as I said, it tends to lend itself where it could become an isolated profession where you can close your door and get lost in that space, but there's more happening within the school building itself, within the school community. So avail yourself to that. And I have to say, over the years, many of my student teachers have taken that advice and they've done just that.
Very good. And when you're talking also about, yes, you're assigned to a cooperating teacher during the student teaching experience, but there's opportunities for you to see more of the school building in the setting and get involved. That's important because you're broadening your learning experience. But
Okay.
also, you never know when the opportunity can lead where there's a position that will open up within that school setting for you. But
Mhm.
if the principal doesn't know you, just say you sign in and you're going right to that cooperating teacher's classroom and that's it, and you leave out and go back on your merry way. There's no, where you said it's really key, relationships with the students, relationships with your cooperating teacher, relationship with their other teachers within the building, relationship with the administration. All that can also sometimes lead to an opportunity for you to have your first teaching job. So it's really key advice what you said. Just not just limit yourself to that particular classroom you're assigned, but also get involved in the school setting as well.
Correct.
So when you think now of, about that student teacher, cooperating teacher role, what is the advice that you would have for cooperating teachers as they are getting new assignments of student teachers? What would be your advice for them?
Do not just relegate them to do paperwork. First and foremost, it's at a disservice to them. But be that mentor-like figure for them. Have a plan in terms of how you see the semester unfolding, the role that they're going to play in the classroom. Be willing to give up that control, if you will, where you're now taking a step back and trusting them to execute these lessons, but set them up for success where you've worked with them closely in terms of designing a lesson, starting first with one, even if it's just working with a small group of 6 students on, say, guided reading for 20 minutes. Start them off small where you can build their confidence, but look ahead to the big picture. So by within a certain number of days or weeks, you could have them teaching a multitude of lessons or even capable of taking on the day. But give them that freedom to explore, give them that flexibility. I had another cooperating teacher where he wanted to try this technological program that I was not familiar with at all. He showed it to me, explained how it was going to fit into the writing unit and how it would help to really push engagement with the children. And I trusted him, and we ran with it, and the kids loved it. They absolutely, had a wonderful experience and produced wonderful pieces of writing and a creative aspect as well. But I trusted him to do that. So having that communication, having that collaborative spirit, where it's not just a question of cooperating teacher, student teacher, but where you're viewed as equals, because even though this is not a licensed teacher just yet, they're going to be soon. And give them that space and that trust to show what they're capable of. And you'll find, especially I find, maybe I'm showing age here, but with younger teachers, they come with a lot of skills that we weren't, a lot of talent and skill that we weren't privy to back in the day. The technological piece, for example, it's second nature to a lot of them, versus a more seasoned older teacher may not be so savvy with something. They can bring something to the table that you didn't think of, or another perspective, or just a new idea.
Very good. Very good advice in terms of how you view that student teacher is really important, and allowing them opportunity to for you to share and be transparent with them as cooperating teacher, give them experience, give them the opportunities, and like you said, seeing them as an equal on this journey for their growth is going to be beneficial. Mm-hmm. When we think about teachers and school leaders, administrators, many of us have this question around work. They say that these words, work-life balance, but I like to say is more like work-life harmony, because I don't believe there's always going to be a balance in terms of our various demands in reference to work as well as home and family. What are some advice or strategies that you will have to give anyone in the audience around work-life balance or harmony, however you view it?
I would say this advice that was given to me when I started this position last year by my principal and one of the directors, know when to turn off, which is difficult for me because your mind is constantly going, thinking about what you have to do next. A thing that helped me to achieve that was removing my work email from my phone. That was a struggle. And I remember when it was presented to me and I asked my principal, I said, but what if there's an emergency? She's like, we would call you. And it was so simple, the response. And I'm thinking that does make sense. A call would go through quicker than an email. But in having that email through the phone, the temptation to pick it up and look at it, and then you see something, your immediate response is that you want to reply to it. And, part of it is you want to reply to it because you don't want to leave someone hanging and wondering. But the other part is you also don't want to have it mounting. So when you get back to work on Monday, you can say to yourself, I was productive because I took care of things this weekend. But then that infringes on your personal time. It infringes on the time with your family, your friends, that time for you to just release and decompress and breathe easier and not be so tense. Because sometimes I know myself, I can be so fully involved with the work that I have to do and whatever's going on project-wise, the tension starts to seep in, but I don't physically realize it until the end of the night, and I'm tight. My neck is tight. My pinched nerve may kick in. And physically, stress begins to manifest itself on you. And I've had negative experiences with that I'm trying to not have reoccur. So just knowing when to shut off. When you get home, it's family time. Don't send an email in the evening. Respect your teacher's time for that as well. And by setting those boundaries, I think it lets people know as well, like, okay, I can send an email to her, but she's probably not going to hear back until, this particular time. But it also lets people know not to push that space, not to push that, to respect your time. And to let them know that you respect theirs in turn. Everybody's going to do with their free time what they so choose. But my advice is know when to turn off, leave work at work, and then enjoy home for home. Or if it's just, your children, your family, your friends, whatever the case may be, a good book, a glass of wine, whatever it is for you, but give yourself that freedom to do so. And I think by being tethered to my phone the way I was and just being able to access things for work, work never ended. And therefore the stress just stayed at this level versus being able to come down.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing the strategy and also your experience. And it's important for us as school leaders to model this work-life balance and harmony, and also be transparent and share this with our staff, and share our expectations with our staff and what we do, how we handle that, because they need to learn that. And it's so good to hear that you're in an environment when they gave you that advice, like take the work emails off the phone, and if there's an emergency, we will call you. Okay. But that is good when it comes from a supervisor, a principal, someone above you to say that, because it helps you in terms of making some adjustments for yourself. And that's what we should be doing for other administrators, our teachers, and other people that within our building, is modeling effective strategies around the work-life balance and work-life harmony. So I appreciate you sharing your experience and also the strategies that you're using today. So let's talk about, you spent 18 years serving in the New York City Department of Education. And then in 2019, you went to Longwood Central School District in Long Island, New York. Being in the New York City Department of Education for 18 years, and I would say this, there's others that are listening to this broadcast
Mm-hmm.
and just concerned about being somewhere in a district for so many years and then making a move. And can you just please share with the audience about that decision for you to move, and any words of advice and encouragement for someone that is just hesitant about moving forward with their career?
It was not an easy choice. I'll start off by saying that being with the DOE for almost 2 decades, that's all I knew. That is all I knew. And even though it's this vast system, I still had an understanding of how things worked. However, I knew I wanted to become an administrator. I also knew that I was looking to be a little closer to home in terms of my commute. After having a long commute for so many years, I was tired. So the idea of finding a position where I'm a little bit closer to home and I can cut down on that time and get home sooner, it was enticing, but it was still daunting leaving. So I did look for positions within the DOE in the current district that I was working in and neighboring districts. So that way, if I wasn't going to be closer to home, I would still be within the surrounding area. It just was not meant to be me finding an administrative position within the DOE. I ended up finding a position out in Long Island, a little east of where I live. It's about 30 minutes east. I'm going against traffic, which is a beautiful thing for the first time in my life. But quality of life, it's changed tremendously, where my commute is no longer a stressor. It was daunting in the sense of two different systems. There's the DOE, and then there's these separate districts on Long Island that operate with their own board of education, each district independent of the other. So to learn how that system works, and I'm still learning that in a sense. So it was a steep learning curve in that respect. But I'm a firm believer that you are going to be where you're meant to be. So when I was offered this position, there's that moment where you're working for so hard to achieve this, and now it's put before you. And for a second, you almost want to take a step back and go, maybe not yet. And you have to remind yourself, like, no, this is what you've been working towards. I'm a believer of God, so I believe God is going to lead you down the path that you're meant to be in. So I took that leap of faith, and I left something that was very comfortable and well known to me, and I tried something new. And I think that's the point of education when we're trying to teach our kids anyways. You want to have them experience something new. Change is uncomfortable. Ease into that discomfort, because ultimately change is good. It will bring you to the good. And I have to say, this is a good change for me. Not only do I now have the experience to be this administrator, but I also have the experience to be closer to home, learning how a new structure is operating, the different levels to it, the chains of command within it, the opportunities that exist within it, in thinking ahead. But it's no regrets. I don't have regrets in terms of the decision that I made. It was one of those things where it was pretty much like jump into the water, sink or swim. The opportunity presented itself and I went for it.
Very good. As we close out our time together this afternoon, so we think about, the audience of students, teachers, aspiring school leaders, current school administrators, superintendents, parents. What is one piece of advice that you would like to leave with the audience today that is going to help any of them on their this educational journey?
That we need each other. Collaboration is key. Collaboration within a school, collaboration with home, between home and school. It's a school community. The school community does not, I should say, well, district community in this respect. It doesn't exist just within the school building, but it's the district itself, how the community comes together. The idea of it takes a village to raise a child, it falls right back to that. So how everybody can help impact and shape the future for our children, be it, the teachers, parents, staff within a building, all levels of faculty, teachers, administrators, whatever the case may be. But how do we come together as a district? How do we come together within a school community? And how do we best lay this out for our children to be successful, for them to have that voice that will give them what they need to be heard in this world, to prepare them to have a space in this world, and how they can further contribute to promote and support others coming up. It's all about basically, paying it forward, so to speak. So what I have that I can offer, what you have that you can offer, and how we can now pass it on to our younger ones, and the cycle continues. So just basically being able to collaborate, being there to support one another, collaboration, support, community.
Thank you very much. Well, Miss Martine Francois de Pass, I want to thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for modeling excellence for your school community. And for everyone watching and tuning in to the principal's office, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And tune in next Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another amazing episode with another amazing educator who is doing things significantly for themselves, for others, and with others in education. Have a great week and see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.